Who organized your event?
How did you sell out the event when you know no one in New York?
Most people run events at a loss because events are expensive.
We sold out the room. We actually had to add chairs.
Okay, we've just come back from the most insane career-defining week in New York City. I just ran my biggest event ever and pulled it off all in less than 12 weeks. So today we're sitting in LA. I've got incredible Adelie who helps me pull this entire event off. And we're going to break down absolutely everything. Like, I'm talking the details that most people gatekeep, that most people don't want to share, the challenges that came with it, and so that you can create your own events too, because events truly are the only way to build real community, to fast track that connection with your audience and make a ton load of sales and money too. So we're going to break down it all. Hello, Adelie.
Hi, Jess.
This is kind of like a lifetime in the making, even though it's been 12 weeks.
Literally, it feels like it.
Yeah.
Time just collapsed.
I know. Well, I'm so glad we get to do this and break down the woman who most people didn't even see you on the event day because you were running so damn fast.
It really was. But, I think just everything has to be done. So it's like when you're running events, I think there's the sexy part and then there's the unsexy part.
Yeah. People see the stages, the photography, the end product, but we're going to break down everything.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for bringing me on to do this. I think this is going to be such a fun conversation. I feel like we can lead in with your why.
Yeah.
Let's contextualize. People are going to want to know, like, why New York? Why now? And what was it that inspired you to even decide, like, I'm going to go to New York and pull off the biggest event of my life?
Yeah. Okay. So I've never really done things small my whole life. So I always think, like, why the heck not? I think too many people sit on their decisions on one day I would love to do this. I'm like, what are you waiting for? What actually are we waiting for? We only have one life. And so for me, I've done 20 events in the past 18 months, touring all around Australia, and Australia's a little bit small. I feel like I've kind of achieved what I need to, and I'm still going to always have incredible events for the Aussie girls because we don't get as much out there. But for me, I love to challenge myself. So I thought, what is the next step? Where is bigger than what I'm already doing in New York? Just had to be it. The funny thing is I actually launched a retreat, which I'm going to do a whole episode on breaking down the retreat. I launched that first. Pretty much sold that out in 24 hours. And I thought, if I'm already in New York, why not bring the events that I have a proven method around to New York City and make it iconic AF. I'd done podcast tour last year all around the US, made these incredible connections that I thought, I already have all the tools with running this many events. I know the blueprint, and I have these connections and speakers that I can bring in to make it even better.
Yeah, I love that. And I think what's so interesting about that, listening to that shows me that it wasn't just an overnight decision and an overnight success. And so people might look at it and think like, oh, yes, you pulled that off in 10 weeks, 100%. But there was little threads along the way that were placed prior to you being able to do that. So it was almost like the culmination of all of those little things along the way.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even 10 years ago, I started my entrepreneur journey. I was sharing with you guys that I first launched my swimwear brand. I was invited to New York Fashion Week 1 week after launching. That was exactly 10 years ago.
Wild.
To now. And we went to the venue multiple times over those days, back and forth. But it was only on the night that we were driving home from the event that we went past the Pier Studios where I actually did New York Fashion Week. So for me, it was such a full circle moment to have kicked off my entire entrepreneurial journey in that city, in that area, and then to be back 10 years later running my own events, kind of almost pulling together everything that I've built with my personal brand over the past 10 years. From back then, I didn't want anyone to know it was me. I couldn't even step foot on that runway to wave at the end of the show. And here I was saying, here I am on the world stage. Let me just land in New York and run probably one of the most iconic events that I feel even the US people haven't pulled off. So if I can do it from the other side of the world in 10 weeks, I think I want everyone to just take away, you can do anything if you decide.
Absolutely. If you decide, that is such a powerful mechanism to action because you just made the decision and then you flowed from there.
Yeah.
So how did you sell out the event when you know no one in New York?
Yeah. Honestly, I think I know about 2 people and they were part of the event.
Yeah.
But again, for me, I have an events blueprint that I've done time and time again. And even though a lot of my community are in Australia, my Instagram reach goes mostly to Australia, I was able to leverage some key strategies that I actually teach in my events blueprint. I have a free masterclass on that, so I'll link it in the show notes for everyone. But a couple of things, obviously leveraging affiliates, getting other people to share it for you. Because if they have an audience in the country or in the location, such as the speakers, there was even just some people who came on board as an affiliate who have communities in New York. I also leveraged ads and I leveraged my own platforms. Like I said, we had 20, 30 people fly from Australia across the entire world to be there. So if you've built a community and an event and something that people genuinely want to be in the room for, they will travel no matter where it is. But the local audience really came in through the word of mouth, kind of being omnipresent, looking like we are everywhere all at once because someone saw it through this person and then they saw it again through someone else. So we made sure behind the scenes, me and my team created graphics for every speaker. We created email templates, which most people didn't even see, and you weren't even necessarily privy to these pieces.
That's right.
We had a whole affiliate Google dashboard where people could get any asset they need, any graphic, any messaging doc, any email template, so that we made it as easy as possible for people to promote it for us. And then we followed up a lot because I know when I'm an affiliate or I'm a speaker, I forget. I'm over here running my business and I'm like, oh shit, that's next week. Oops, I forgot to promote it. So we knew that people are busy. We were following up once or twice a week, depending on when it was in the time frame before the event. But it was the follow-ups and the touch points and keeping everyone updated with where we're at with ticket sales and things like that, that it made everyone feel part of the mission.
Yeah.
It wasn't just like me versus you or me and can you do me a favor? We all were working towards that greater mission. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And we sold out the room. We actually had to add chairs.
We had to add chairs. And in events, like I've been running events for a long time. I've spoken to people who run massive events all over the country. The usual show up rate, even no matter what the price is for tickets, is usually 70-ish% show up rate, depending on how good the event is. I think everyone turned up, and I don't know where some extra people came from, to be honest, but we had to get more chairs out.
Absolutely.
Because we had speakers come and sit in on the entire event. We had people stay back. I have never heard of like a 100% shot rate for an event. Ever.
Absolutely. And then even for the VIP dinner, we even had people upgrading.
We had people upgrading to the VIP dinner. We have so much on the back end that people don't see. And this is all my strategies that my team implement. But we have so many emails for the GA people saying, hey, do you want to join us for the dinner? Because again, I know the value of the dinner. It's not about can we get more money out them. It's about are they going to get the full experience? We have so much touch points. Before we even get to the event, we're sending them podcast episodes to binge beforehand. We're sending them masterclasses to get excited. We're sending them so much valuable assets. One, that they come in really warm and ready to learn. But two, it builds that trust where they feel like they know me or they know who they're coming in to see. And therefore, they're going to show up more. Your best friend is always going to show up more than a random person you met on the street 2 seconds ago.
True.
So when I'm running ads, that's something that I'm really, really strategic about, having that on the back end.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'm sure so many people want to know, though, how did you pull it off?
Yeah. Okay, there was a lot of logistics, which is why I brought you on.
Exactly.
But what I think most people don't understand from the logistics, and I actually asked some questions to my audience and we'll answer those a little bit later, but one question that came through was like, who organized your event? And I think most people see the quote unquote star on the stage and think, right, she just turned up, everything's done, good on you, well done. From the ideation to the concept, to the title, to the branding, to even the graphic design was my concept that then my incredible VA executed. She's not a web designer or a graphic designer, but she executed on my brand concept. Everything from choosing the venue, I looked at every single venue in the entirety of New York City. And for me, it's like a fun hobby. I was doing this at like 10 p.m. at night in bed. And I got 1,000,001 links, and then I sent it to my VA team. They put it in a spreadsheet and just started gathering information. But I'm not kidding when I say I looked at every single venue, and they ranged from like $5K to $500K in budget. So some were a quick write-off because we're not out here trying to spend $500K yet. But there's all these things that people don't see, and I'm such a control freak, and I'm learning, but I'm attention to detail. But I'm attention to detail. I'm like, I need to make sure the venue is incredible, because if the venue isn't quite right with the visuals, with the aesthetic, changes the whole feel of the entire event. And so that's when then I think 12 weeks ago, I was like, right, I'm going to need some help with this, because my team were already maxed out running the business as usual. And so you and I, basically, I was working part-time on this because I'm running the business, and you were working part-time on this because that's what we agreed on, pulled off the entire event in 10 weeks.
Yep.
This is what I think most people don't understand. Most people have event teams of 10, 20, 30 people, like one person specifically on tickets, one person specifically on graphic design, one person on catering. We're like, we just did it all.
Yeah.
With the help of the 2 VAs on my team. We obviously had some incredible people helping us out on the floor on the day and connections that we could lean on, but really we pulled it off. So I'm going to throw it to you though. What does it look like from a logistical perspective for you? Because you are managing a lot of the liaising with the venues, with the caterers, with the backdrops, with the flowers, the sponsors, the pitching, the follow-ups. For some reason, New Yorkers don't like to reply to emails. So I'm like, can we get on to that?
Yeah.
But what did it look like from your perspective, and what surprised you about pulling off the event?
On my end, one, I think you really needed to start with an overarching, like the big picture of all the moving parts that might have to be considered and accounted for. And then it was like really drilling down into the detail of each of those pillars. So for sponsorship, for example, I think that's a really big part that people maybe miss and don't fully understand. But, you know, being able to go out to identifying aligned sponsors. Obviously, you had already had a whole list to work with, as you had done with the venues, which was such an amazing starting point. And so then being able to tailor a sponsor email and then follow up and then have the attention to detail and systems to track how often you have reached out to people.
Yeah.
And you also need to have a lot of patience and persistence, because as you said, New Yorkers don't really get back to you immediately. So there's so many open tabs in your head, because you're like, okay, we're curating an experience. It's not just an event that you're throwing together. You are, as you said, curating an experience from end to end. And in order to do so, you need to know what details the attendee is going to experience. From the moment that they walk into the space, it becomes a world.
Yeah.
And in order to create that world, you need to be on top of all of those things. And you have to also be prepared for a lot of no's, a lot of ghosting.
Yeah.
And to just really have the tenacity to just keep at it so that you can really build something. And you can't drop the ball on anything as well, because sometimes you do, and then you're like, oh my gosh, we have timelines to meet, deliveries. So once you do get a sponsor actually across the line, or the catering is across the line, then they'll be like, oh, we need X, Y, Z as part of this experience as well.
Yeah.
And so you're also then reverse engineering your timeline, because you've got a ton of deliveries that are trying to arrive at the venue.
Became a logistics expert overnight. One thing that I think you did well was having that timeline. So we had the overview of everything, and we sat down and met with, okay, what do we need at every touch point? We obviously need a venue, we need food, we need sponsors, and we had to make all those decisions. But then what you did was, in a spreadsheet, broke down the timelines.
Yes.
Things like food for the dinner, that had a bit longer of a lead time than finding a venue, because if we didn't have the venue, we couldn't go to market. And so having that spreadsheet mapped out, I think most people miss, and people get overwhelmed.
Absolutely.
With all the moving pieces. But it was like, this week, all we need to do is sort out the venue. Next week, then we look at the catering, and then next week is the AV, and all of these moving parts. But what was something that surprised you? Whether it was like dealing with certain people, whether it was just like, wow, I didn't even think that this was part of running these kind of events, or what's something that maybe people don't think about.
What surprised me was probably the level of detail that goes into sponsorship. And I think I said this earlier as well. I think a lot of people don't realize that that's even something that you can do.
Yeah.
So they run these events, or maybe they have aspirations to run an event, and they're like, how am I going to pay for this? Or how do I bootstrap this? Or who can I speak to come on as a partner?
Yeah.
But what they don't realize is that a lot of brands are actually wanting to sponsor events like this because it is a marketing and promotional tool for them.
And honestly, I think events are the number one place brands should be spending their money right now, because you can spend it online, but trust is going down. If you spend money in a room, people have that instant connection. And I actually asked every single person from stage in one of my keynotes, I said, are you going to trust the person that went viral, that you saw a few of their videos, or are you going to trust the person that you've seen on stage one time? The answer was just a resounding, like, in person. And you feel it when you're in these spaces. So it makes sense to get sponsors on board, give them the opportunity. And this is where a lot of people run events and see them as a cost exercise. This is going to cost me money. Events are just fun, get some good content. But I've always run things profitably. That's been something that I'm like, we're not going to negotiate on that. And when you're running your first event, it was harder for us with sponsors because we don't have a proof of concept in the US. They couldn't see because my events in Australia are structured a little bit differently. But we looked at how we can get creative, you know, even just venue sponsors, actual, you know, execution sponsors came on board. Then we had actual paid sponsors part of the event as well. And for anyone thinking about sponsorship, I would say just who serves your audience.
Yes.
It doesn't even have to be, you know, we ran the personal brand event. It doesn't have to be a company that helps people with personal brand. We had wellness partners. We had the venue florals partners.
Absolutely.
We had, you could do
Snacks.
beauty, snacks,
Yeah.
you know, fertility, from Spring Fertility. There are so many ways that you can seek sponsorship. And one thing that I will say from Australia to the US, Australian brands don't have as much budget as US or international brands. And so that's a huge opportunity out here. There's whole business models that like Create and Cultivate. A lot of their business model is entirely sponsorship driven, which is really, really cool. So yeah, we tapped into that. That's something that I learned though through my influencer marketing days when I used to run my influencer agency, is understanding how brands work with influencers, how brands work in exchange for marketing, for photography, for even just brand presence is huge. So that was massive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that was probably one of my biggest surprises and biggest learning around events. And, you know, because I was the one like organizing all of that, having that real close touch point with our sponsors and with the brands that came on board made it feel like so much, like there was so much more of a personal touch then, and having them come through to the event, the ones that were able to, and see what we had created and curated after all of those weeks of planning. I think they were so happy with the execution.
Yeah, they were so happy that they gave you gifts on the day, right?
It was so sweet.
This is what people don't understand about, you know, sales or sponsorships or anything like that. People think, oh, I don't want to ask for someone for help, or I don't want to ask for money. And it really is doing them a favor. You've created, and, you know, I've been building this network and this community and these people for years and years and years. And if brands can tap into that, the key though is making sure that the brands are really, really aligned.
Yes.
Because we did have some brands obviously reach out as well, which were just not aligned for the space and the audience. And again, comes back to the whole curated experience.
Absolutely. And I think, like, again, when you are planning an event like this, you have to get creative. And that was definitely one of the things I learned about you and really appreciated, was how creative that you could get with the sponsors. Because a lot of people would just think like the basics, like maybe like venue, food. But then because we went above and beyond that to, you know, the goodie bags, for example, and the florals, which the florals just created such a beautiful space for us.
Something Borrowed blooms.
Yes.
Like, the concept is incredible because they have faux flowers, really high quality. You can't even tell. But they delivered the whole, it was already set exactly how we were going to place it. They had the roadmap, put this here, put this there. They had the stands. I think that was the best thing. Even if let's say in future we have budget or we partner with a floral brand, I still think this is better because they don't get wilted throughout the day. Yeah. We were able to take the flowers and put them into the table setting for dinner. Mm-hmm. It was just so perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think on top of that as well, like this other sponsorship that was really helpful was the help on the day. Mm-hmm. You know, obviously we had Lauren and Natalia come through and having all hands on deck was actually so needed. I mean, it was so courageous of you and of us to be like, we can do the planning up to a certain point. And that's fine. You can do that from, you know, our home offices in Perth and Sydney. But when it came to the day and we arrived there the night before and we saw all the boxes and the AV setting up and it was a bit of a, that was a bit of a surprise moment of like, oh my gosh. Like,
because the production value is a whole other level.
Yes.
And normally in Australia, when I run events, we do it at a venue that has AV, that has all, and it's already set up when you arrive.
That's it.
Whereas we had AV come in and it was actually awesome they handled everything. They were really such pros. The venue was so helpful. Amazing. The guys at Hamilton Loft were honestly so helpful, receiving all our packages all week. But having Lauren and Natalia from LaRue Creative come in on the day and, you know, even help us with referring a photographer and a couple of things that we needed, but having them there on the day to kind of manage just getting the speakers mic'd up and coordinating that while you were coordinating everything across the board for the event, it just meant that we knew things were handled and took some things off your plate, which was really awesome as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And like, I think another factor for people to consider is just like the minute detail that also needs to go into the documentation for the day. So the run sheets, the speaker run sheets, the timing for the AV.
When I say I'm a control freak, I'm like, no.
She is.
But that's why it runs, because I've done this so many times that if you don't have one minute detail, what song needs to play when, what exact time, I always allow so much buffer time for just swapping over. I've seen so many events that have zero swap over time. I'm like, how many minutes do you think it's going to take for someone to walk off stage and then the next person to walk on stage? I've got every minute like detailed, but you really helped with documenting that. And then we just took it to a whole other level and making sure that everything was in there, because when you do, you just hand the person the paper and they have everything, and then it relieves some of the pressure on you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Just everyone else to know what they're actually doing. So I obviously handled all of that stuff, but I couldn't have done it alone. So what were the parts that you executed and coordinated?
Yes. So I executed obviously on the vision, like I said, the branding as well, vision. All of the social media content was done by my amazing VA Chen, but I was posting it all. I was coming up with the video ideas and doing all of the marketing. The team were on emails and things, but for me, it was more about the entire flow of the day, and it's something that most people overlook. They're like, cool, we need a panel, then a speaker, but I'm thinking about, how do people emotionally feel at the start of the day? What do they need? So my opening keynote was activating, getting people to think bigger, coming in open-minded. That then set the tone for Jen Gottlieb to activate people with emotion, and she's so great at delivering that. Then we went into a panel where all the speakers, I set the intention for that panel to be around how they built their personal brand, what is possible, how do they monetize, what does that actually look like? Because if people can't even think about, why would I need a personal brand, they're not going to listen to any of the rest of the day. So I curated every single moment. Then I put the right speakers in the right segments. But then I also wrote all the questions for all of the panels. So even though I wasn't hosting the panels, I wrote them all and curated it based on, again, what is it that I need the audience to receive in this moment based on what they've already heard from the other speakers. Then we kind of went into a segment where I interviewed Lauren and we did a live podcast recording, and that was flipping things on the head, where we spoke about how you don't need social media to grow a personal brand. And that's going to be a whole episode on the podcast, so come back and listen to that one. But then the afternoon, I wanted to be so practical. And I find a lot of times you go to these events and you sit there and you listen. And it's almost like you're invisible. But I know from being on stage, you see every single person in the audience. You see them, whether they're engaged, whether they're not. Yeah. And so I wanted to make sure people were engaged throughout because, again, if they're not engaged, they're not paying attention. So for the afternoon, I wanted it to be really practical. So I came in and I ran a workshop where I actually did hot seat coaching in the room. And most people say that's a no-no for a larger room size. But again, I know exactly what people need when I can hot seat coach with them. I also knew that we would have a more theatrical, activating keynote from Jen Gottlieb. Then we would have some panels. Then we would have a live fireside. Then we would have some hot seat coaching. And I knew no one else was really bringing that into the space. So I did the hot seat coaching workshop. Then we had another practical panel, which was more like, cool, how did you land your clients? Give me that, because again, I think a lot of panels could have been a podcast. And I didn't want that. I was like, you can listen to a podcast. Let's keep that separate. But I want you to walk away with knowing exactly how they landed that client. What did they say? How did they do it? Because that's where the real value is. And then we had Leanne running her AI workshop, which was amazing and so practical and always entertaining.
Yes.
And then we finished off with Avni Barman, which is just an incredible way to kind of wrap up the day, having a major keynote speaker. But then hers was, I interviewed her and then she wanted to do it as a Q&A. So again, that brought a different element of the whole flow of the day. So I did everything pretty much from the run sheets to when do we have breaks, how long the breaks, the questions, when people arrive, where is the desk going to be so that they feel welcomed, they know exactly where to go, where are we putting the coffee cart? And you did a lot of that as well on the floor planning, but people don't realize that. They're like, where can we fit the coffee cart logistically, not how do I want people to feel as they move through every single part of the day? And I wanted people to feel held. I wanted people to feel really welcomed. And the feedback that we got, which is kind of wild because the same feedback from everyone. The speakers were telling me feedback that they heard from people. And it really just was, wow, one, the caliber of women attending in the room was another level. And in the US, I didn't know this, but in the US, there's a lot of events that you have to apply to even be in the room at. And mine was just come on over. Everybody's welcome. But the way we marketed it, the messaging that I put behind everything really gets the right people in the room. I even had a few speakers that I reached out to, and this blew my mind, that said no because they weren't near their millions yet and they didn't feel worthy of the stage.
Wow.
And so it has a double-edged sword when you have messaging like that, but it means that the right people are in the room.
Yeah.
And that's exactly how I wanted it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was so impressive in the lead up that you had so many tabs open. So I loved that even though like you had me like kind of managing everything through the spreadsheets, and I was working with the VAs as well. But you just seemed to have your finger on the pulse on everything, which was so impressive and so incredible, but also meant that you weren't getting much sleep.
Yeah.
But the other thing that actually tied everything together really nicely on the day was having Annalise fly in from Australia.
That was incredible. Annalise McCarthy, if you don't follow her, we're going to put her link in the show notes, but she was incredible. She is an absolute pro at emceeing. She came to the sound check and she just owns that stage. She liaised with the AV team. She was testing the mics. She was just guiding the whole day. And having an MC is one of the most underrated things that people overlook. People think, hello, everybody, here is the toilet. Let me announce things. But the MC sets the energy. For the entire day. She knows how to activate people, get people moving, because the worst thing that can happen is if you as a keynote speaker get on the stage and the crowd is flat, you spend the first 10 minutes warming them up. So having her part of the event was incredible. One, because she's just so damn good at what she does. She knows how to stay to time. She knows what the audience needs. I didn't have to handhold her. But two is just having her as a really good friend of mine, being able to be part of that day. The same was having you and Leanne and so many incredible women flying in from across the entire world. I think there was about at least 20 or 30 women that flew all the way from Australia, that even flew all the way from Canada, across the United States. We had people from Atlanta, LA, Miami for this event, which is iconic in itself because I'm come out of nowhere, quote unquote. I've been here for 30 plus years, but I came out of nowhere and ran an event in New York that people wanted to fly across the entire world for.
Absolutely. But it wasn't an overnight success again. So it was nowhere, but also I feel like the seeds had been planted over time for you and you just had to claim it. You just had to decide, which you did. And so that's what makes it look like you've come out of nowhere, is because that decision was made and then it was like, it's happening, I'm doing it. And you work so fast, which I love about you.
I'm just very efficient. And that's why we get things done quickly. And that's where I think, most people don't work efficiently because they think they've got all this time in the world. But I'm like, let me pull off this event and then I'll do another one by the time I would have done one if I allowed myself to wait.
Okay, so let's talk speakers. How the heck did you get those speakers on your stage?
Well, a few things. One, I've been building relationships for the past year. So someone like Jen Gottlieb, I got on the podcast last year. I flew down to Miami and just started building a relationship. The thing with that, though, I followed her up about 20 times. Persistence. And she was like, damn, this girl is serious. And I think too many people are too carefree when it comes to their goals these days. They're kind of try once and then they give up. I don't give up. And people actually respect that. But most people give up because they don't want to be annoying or they don't want to hassle people. But it kind of shows you don't care if you're not willing to follow up. So I followed up the heck out of Jen Gottlieb. And she was like, damn, I respect this girl's hustle. So she agreed to be on the podcast. And then truly we just built a relationship over the past year and that was amazing. So she agreed to be part of it. She was one of the first that joined us for the lineup, which was amazing. And then other people like Jacqueline Johnson, I actually had on the podcast, and Sanira back in 2020 when I first started. But Sanira, we then, sort of separated ways. I've always followed her journey. But someone like Jacqueline, I had on the podcast last year. I went to Create and Cultivate. So these people are people I've just been building relationships with. And a lot of times, like I talk about being a woman of value because how do you get high profile people on? People look at high profile as in big following or they've got fame. People take that as value. But for me, I don't have the biggest following. I'm not necessarily famous. I am well known in my communities, but people look at how did you get them on your stage when you don't have that level of fame? That's what I'm seeing as the undertone anyway. But there's so many other ways to add value to people. One, seeing people. People just want to be seen and valued. And when I pitch people, I don't send a blanket pitch. Because if I get a blanket pitch, it's going straight in the bin. I'm not even replying because I'm like, you actually couldn't care less if I was there or not. So if you can make people feel valued, seen, I sent them voice memos, I sent emails. Even Avni the other day, she said, Jess, I don't say yes to anyone. She's like, mostly I don't like anyone. And I'm like, girl, I get it because me too. But she said, Jess, there's something about you and your energy from your first email that I was like, I'm down for this. I want to be part of this. And she flew across the country for this event. She then also agreed to come and hang out on my retreat for a casual dinner. And again, she was like, no, normally I get paid but she was like, I genuinely want to be here. And so if you can make people feel seen, but the other piece to that is I think I was building something and most people don't have the audacity and most people can't be bothered to build something that big, build a room where you fill the room and they get to show up and share their message with them. Build a community, build a message that they're like, damn, I want to get behind this message. I want to support this movement of women on a mission. So it was kind of this combination of all of it that allowed me to build these networks, build these relationships. And now that I've done one, it's going to be easier because actually Sanira pitched to be on my stage. So after I started promoting, she saw it through different channels. And then I started getting really, really incredible speakers like Sanira. And, some of them weren't a fit. But when Sanira reached out, I was like, yes, we need to get her on the stage because I've followed her journey for so long. And she flew up to New York. And it was just such a culmination. But I think one big thing that people overlook is people think you have to be bigger. Yeah. You have to be louder. You have to be someone you're not. But people read what's genuine.
Yes.
And that's something that I just always try and lead myself with. I don't have to be the loudest one in the room and they respect that.
Yeah, I love that. Absolutely. I mean, you're so consistent in your messaging and, you talked about like building something. I think a lot of people don't necessarily realize what it takes to build something in terms of consistency, perseverance, clarity, all of those things, and just showing up in a really genuine way, which you've done so beautifully. And, you know, another thing about sponsorship and speakers, what we found as well, when we started going out to sponsors, a lot of them already had a founder that was wanting to build a personal brand. Yeah. And so people were pitching us as well. Like they were like, oh, we'd love to come on as a sponsor, but is there a place for our founder to come on as a speaker? And sometimes it was aligned and sometimes it wasn't. So we actually had to apply the discernment as well when you were curating that room.
Yeah, because the key is the experience, like we said. But in saying that, it wasn't all smooth sailing on this journey. In the journey to securing speakers, we actually secured speakers. We had contracts signed. We went out with marketing with speakers' faces on it to then have 2 speakers within 1 week of each other both email me and just say, hello, just letting you know we can't do it anymore. And I'm like, what do you mean you can't do it? Like, what does can't do it mean? Do you mean you're tired today? You can't reply to my email? Do you like what does can't do it mean? And that was literally at one sentence. And I was freaking out because we'd announced it. Like we'd announced who it was.
Absolutely. They're on the website.
I then had, I think this was maybe 4 weeks before the event, right? And I was flying out in 2 weeks and we had to fill 2 more speaker spots because I'd already told all the rest of the people, no, we're full. Yeah. And then we had to find some more speakers. And even despite these challenges, I think everything always happens for a reason because we had the most incredible women on that stage that just shared so much value, but there were challenges.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we'll go into more of the challenges when they were like closer to execution because I think that's where more of the challenges kind of showed themselves. But how do you keep your cool and your nervous system regulated when stuff like that does happen? Because you know, you can spiral out of control by that point when 2 key speakers that you've already gone out with suddenly drop out.
For me, it's always trusting and knowing that I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Like most people stress because they think they're not in control anymore. But if you know you will figure it out, there will always be a way to make it work.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I went because if you can keep a grounded mind, then your brain can apply the logic. If you're being illogical, all you can focus on is the emotional dysregulation and it doesn't help anyone.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's almost like when you're in like contraction and you're stressing out and you go into that illogical space that's like doesn't serve you. But then when you're in expansion and things, you know, you're in a positive place and you go into a logical possibility, then that serves you.
Yeah, definitely.
Because we always talk about like illogical success.
Yeah.
And it's almost like those 2 separate things is like when you're doing it from a place of contraction versus expansion, which I think, you know, you're so good at doing things from a place of expansion, obviously.
Always. Yeah.
Everyone wants to know how you make money.
Okay. So most people run events at a loss because events are expensive. I think ours was around 50K?
Yeah, I think it ended up falling at about 45.
Yeah, USD. So that's like 60 Australian. It's the most expensive event I run and it's not going to be the most expensive in future because we're going to be scaling that. But that's a lot of money to fork out of your own pocket with no clue if there's going to be an ROI. But because I have the evidence from my events in the past, I mean, if you're relying on ticket sales alone, you'll be very lucky to break even in events. And most events don't break even from ticket sales at all. It's a nice buy-in, but it doesn't make you profitable unless you're charging $10,000 a ticket. And many people aren't going to pay that. And it's not the bigger impact that I want to make. So for us, we obviously had sponsors. That was around... what was it, around 20K value in both gifted and some paid, but most was gifted as well. Yeah. So that's not necessarily money in our pocket. Then one big thing for me, and I'm a big believer in, you can help people in one day, you cannot change their life. You can give them a tidbit, but if you don't give them an opportunity to continue their growth, to continue their learning, then you're doing a huge disservice. And this is where I'm super passionate about not necessarily doing a big masculine, like you must buy or you die, because that's not the vibe either. But I am a big believer, and this is what I teach my clients and work with my clients on, how we make the event profitable is one thing, but it's deeper than that. It's how do we give people the opportunity to really continue their growth, to deepen their access, to fast track what it is that they're in that room for. And so I offered an option for people to continue to work with me, but I did it in a really curated way. I didn't do a pitch from stage. I did it in the lunch break or the afternoon tea break. And the amount of women that came up to me, really high profile women that said, wow, the way you did that was so tasteful. And I looked in that room and that room was full. We had almost a quarter of the women sit and stay back. And again, that's very unheard of to have that.
We ran out of forms.
We ran out of forms. So I've learned that to print more forms. But you really do have to offer opportunities for people to continue in some way, in a way that makes sense off the back of the event. And then the experience is also curated to give them that one transformation. Because if you try and fit the whole life transformation in one day, you're going to overwhelm people. They're going to go home with a million pieces of homework and they're going to never use it. So by curating it this way, you're creating a deeper transformation, which is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're just like focusing more on the impact that you can provide. And then as a function of that, that's where the profitability really comes from, because people really want to know, like, was the event profitable?
Yeah.
But it's about creating a broader ecosystem where you're not just focusing on the event and the ticket sales, but creating.
Definitely.
Like serving your community in a larger way. Yeah.
Even with the limited sponsors, and obviously our goal in future will be way more profitable as well.
Yes.
But a huge goal of mine was, can we break even on the event alone without counting any further offers? And we did that. I think we were about $2,000. But I was prepared to spend at least 10, 15 grand out of pocket for this, because again, people don't think about this as an investment in the future, in the growth of my business, in launching into the US, in being known for what it is that I'm here to do and how to impact people.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that long-term vision. It's not just the right now.
Cool. Okay, if you have one lesson for someone who's wanting to maybe pull off an iconic event, what was one lesson that you want to share?
One lesson that I would like to share is speed and attention to detail is everything. And also starting early. So even though we pulled it off in 10 weeks, I think in the future, knowing what I know now about sponsorship and email times and lag times on people responding, is that like build that overall vision and start as early as you can. Yeah. And really like just start to list out all the different things that you need to do and then just kind of hone in. So that's not really one lesson. But
no, but that's key. And that's kind of how I run my whole life. So speed and attention to detail is everything. Yeah. Because most people don't do it. So it's kind of the competitive advantage when people don't have attention to detail and they don't operate at speed. It's how I've created so much success. So I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think relationships, like, also don't underestimate the power of relationships. Yeah. From your end, but also my end as well. Yeah. Like, be a nice person to work with, and that is what keeps sponsors like feeling really good about the sponsorship as well, and just every touch point that you have with another human being in that whole process of pulling things together. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. And what about you?
My biggest lesson was to allow myself more time on the day. And so I ended up being on stage 4 times. I was planning on twice, but then Avni wanted me to interview her. I interviewed Lauren. I then ran my opening keynote and my workshop. So I would probably just allow more time for myself, because it kind of felt like I was running down a hill. On the day I was like, oh, this is fun. This is easy. Oh, shit. Oh, shit. Oh, shit. Oh, shit. And because of the afternoon break where I shared about my next offer, then I was straight back up on stage after that. So it didn't have enough lead time for me. But, I mean, it wasn't a big issue. It's just those little pieces that we can continue to tweak and optimize.
Yeah, love that. Yeah. There's actually so many moving parts truly go into it. And you make it look so simple, because you've done it so many times before, but it really is just a massive logistical effort, and to really kind of like cross your T's and dot your I's. Yeah. You do make it look really easy though.
To me, it feels easy. That's the thing. Because if you move fast and you don't overthink things, if you're on, like you said, speed equals the result. For me, if I leave something for 2 days, then someone else is going to take another 2 days to reply to me. You set the pace for people. So if I reply within 10 minutes, they're going to reply within 10 minutes. And then we're going to get 5 emails done in an hour instead of waiting 5 weeks for the same exact results. So the way you move as a leader, and this is just in general for people in business, the way you move as a leader is how people will mirror back to you.
Love that.
And so if you want people to move faster, where are you not moving fast? If you want people to be more direct, where are you not being direct? And so that's really been the key to everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing all of that.
Well,
I'm sure.
thank you for being part of everything. And honestly, there's probably so many pieces that we haven't even touched on. And there's so many moving parts, but that's why I truly love working with women, building out their events, not just as a standalone thing, but as a part of a whole ecosystem in their business, because there are so many minute things and the mindset that comes with it. And who am I to be doing that? And, oh shit, Jess, I have to sell to people. I have to sell tickets. I'm not selling enough tickets and everything in between. And that's why I love working closely with women as well. So I'm going to put the lesson in the show notes so you guys can watch that. It's free, and let me know what you took away from this video. Yay. Thanks, Adley, for everything.
Jess, of course.
Wouldn't have been able to do it without you.
Oh, it's such a team effort.
So good.